So welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us for another Leadership Insight series with Lancaster University Management School. We'd love to be all together, in a room having this event with you, but obviously, that's not possible in today's world. But we're really, really lucky today to be joined by Kai Ojo, who's the Managing Director of Planisware for the UK and Ireland. He's got more than 20 years of experience in technology and has experience working in corporate, SMEs, and entrepreneurial businesses. His responsibilities for operational and strategic objectives. He's completed an executive MBA at Lancaster as well in 2005. And in his own words, he's very passionate about being a customer advocate and has delivered huge amounts of value to his customers there. So welcome, Kai. Thank you for joining us. And I'm very excited about today's conversation.
Thank you, Vikas, for the intro. Very well put together. So I'm very pleased to be on the session. I think it's an interesting experience for me, having been to Lancaster myself. Loved the place. Thoroughly enjoyed the session I had there. So
I thought maybe that would be a good place to start, actually, because obviously you completed an executive MBA, and lots of people in high performance careers think about, should I do an MBA journey? Is that something that would work for me? What was it that made you decide to do, an exec MBA? And in your own experience as well, what opportunities and help do you think that's provided you career-wise?
Yeah. Oh, wow. So I'm a bit of a planner. So when I finished my first degree, I decided I was going to have like a 5-10 year plan for my career. And there was something that I knew I needed to do, which was further education. And the reason for that was because I enjoy learning, but I didn't want to kind of be in academia permanently. I wanted to work in the corporate world, but I enjoy learning. And so I looked at different alternatives of what to do. And I settled on the MBA because a lot of the contacts that I had in industry gave me the impression that it was something that would actually equip me for the future as well. Yeah. And MBAs a while back had a bit of a stigma that you had to be a certain age to do an MBA, and that was, I think it was about 25, 26 possibly. And a lot of people said, oh, you're too young, you can't possibly do an MBA, you've got no experience. But I flipped it the other way, and I said, well, actually, I'd rather do the MBA now so that I can try and learn as much as I can of what the good ways to do things are before I get into my own bad habits, if you like. And I chose the Lancaster one, and just to pick up on your reason around the opportunities, I chose the Lancaster one because a lot of the work you would be doing had to be work-based. So you had to do projects and assignments based on your day job or the business you were in. So not only was I getting value, my business that I was working in was getting value as well. And it allowed me to actually learn quite a lot about the business in doing my assignments for the MBA. And that's probably one of the biggest opportunities because it got me thinking about all the different functions of the business a lot more than I did. I think I started as a software engineer where I was before, and then I was a project manager and a program manager. But all of a sudden I was looking in the marketing side and the finance side, and I kind of knew they were there as functions, but I didn't have a good appreciation for them. The MBA allowed me to really get into them and understand what they do and why they're important for the business structure. The MBA itself, we had so many different people from different sectors on the cohort, and that was probably one of the most enjoyable part for me because I got to hear different perspectives and I got to challenge my own assumptions about the workplace and different roles in the hierarchies and the organizational behavior challenges, and just seeing different perspectives from different people. The interactions that we had, no disrespect to the lecturers, they were great to kind of guide us and kind of frame the conversation for us. But the interactions between the students on the back of that framework from the lecturers was really rich, really, really rewarding at Lancaster.
And do you think that going through a program like that allowed you to change how you approach delivering customer value? Because I know it's something that you're really passionate about in your role in being that advocate and delivering real value for your customers. But from getting a more holistic understanding of how a business runs, did that change how you wanted to deliver value or how you approached thinking about what value means from a customer perspective?
Definitely. I think the one area that I wasn't overly pleased about or overly interested in was finance,
Yeah.
especially corporate finance. And it's not because I don't appreciate numbers or anything, but it always felt like a different world to me. But having the experience on the MBA around it, having people who were finance experts on the course, allowed me to have an appreciation for it, which meant that, delivering customer success and customer value to my customers over the years, because I now have a financial context to work within and appreciate the financial context better, it means that you don't end up making decisions that cost the business more than it should. And then by inference, you then end up hurting the customer in the long run, and all that kind of stuff. So it gave me a rounded picture of the business function. So yeah, definitely it framed a lot of things for me.
And looking at your own career, you mentioned you started out as a software engineer before going into project management and onto your role today. How do you think, there's so much that we see in the media about how technology is transforming businesses, but you're actually at that bleeding edge doing this for real. So we're not talking about the edge case of AI coming to steal jobs. You're looking at the very, very real aspects of how businesses are being transformed with technology. What are the big trends that you're seeing at the moment? And as a bit of an extension to that, do you think that coming through this pandemic's changed how businesses think about digital transformation?
Well, definitely. So at Planisware, we've been doing this. This is what we do. We help our organizations go through that digital transformation, making use of technology as much as possible. So we've been doing this for over 20 years. And when the pandemic hit and we had a situation where organizations kind of had to reflect inward on how they do business and how their teams are structured, we've had a huge reaction from some of our even existing customers who were already using our product to help them further accelerate the digital transformation to the point where they can gain huge efficiencies. So, and that's one of the biggest trends that we've seen is around efficiency gains, because for example, in the automotive or engineering sector, we help some of our customers and some really large customers. We help them consolidate huge budgeting cycles alongside huge new product roadmap cycles all together into one system. That means that they can now make decisions a lot quicker, a lot more efficient, and a lot more accurately. And then they're also able to free up their resources to actually look further into the future and plan further ahead, rather than spending a lot of time consolidating data manually. And so I think that's one of the biggest trends. And there's other areas. I mean, there's someone here, I work in Media City, and there's a company here, Flock. They're using they're using tech on the HR side to help organizations understand their employees better. This is always a tricky topic about, where does tech go? Where doesn't it go? I think there's a balance. I think you have to kind of step back and think about, first of all, what's the technology and how can it help? And if it can help, then there's the ethics side of it. There's always going to be that. We always have to be aware of how to manage that. But I think we should never be afraid to explore what's possible, because, our employees look to us to help them, go to the next level of understanding of how technology can help them. So if we're afraid to test what's possible, then we're not encouraging the next generation to do the same. So I think it's important to do that. And more companies are embracing technology, to try and get that efficiency for their businesses.
Yeah. And in that world as well, are there any big opportunities that you can see on the horizon about where technology is about to come in and really transform things? I think one of the obvious ones that I think is very close now is around Industry 4.0 and how, high bandwidth 5G communication is going to transform factories. But are there any kind of real big, exciting areas that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, definitely. So Planisware, our CEO, Pierre de Monson, he's a techie at heart. And he's a very, very product innovative sort of thinking kind of person. And artificial intelligence has always been at the core of what we do at Planisware, in the sense that, things like machine learning has always been embedded in our product to try and help our customers who have huge amounts of data in our system to learn from it, rather than constantly reinventing the wheel. So we are very, very active in artificial intelligence to help our customers take their data and give it a different perspective that they wouldn't have thought of and present it to them differently. So that AI capability and using it to help them predict trends and predict risks. For example, we've got customers in pharmaceutical and aerospace, and they're very, very hot on, risk management and risk analysis and forward thinking about risk. So we're able to provide them with data that trends those risks for them without them having to kind of think about how to do it themselves.
Which is amazing.
Which is really amazing, because it's very exciting when you see the work actually predict things for you, and you can see the accuracy get better and better as you add more data into it. So that's definitely a big trend that we're seeing in the industry at the moment.
And obviously with any scaling business, particularly in sectors like technology, people are really, really key. And I know, from the conversation we've had, that you're doing some work around diversity and inclusion in the digital, creative and technology sector. It'd be great just to, I think, initially just get a read from you about how good or bad a job are those sectors doing, because we've seen so many initiatives come in the last couple of years as well. And specifically around your work, what are you doing to, to use the phrase, to move the needle forward on those issues?
Are the industries good or bad? That's a tricky subject, because it depends on different perspectives, whether it's the people who are in it or the people who are outside looking into it. I think there could always be room to improve at the moment, certainly. I only recently I've started, reflecting a lot more about my own context, if you like, and the Manchester area where I'm in. And I purposely chose to work with an organization that's outside slightly of my own comfort zone, purely because I think it allows me to then use that to reflect better on my own context. And I'll explain that a bit later. But in terms of how well people are doing, the sectors are aware. That's the first important thing. They're aware. And I think that's a huge step, because that awareness then allows them to think constructively about what to do about it. There are certain sectors that I think are not as aware. That's where they struggle, because there's a denial. I don't know whether that's the right word, but there is the unawareness makes them slightly blasé about the topic. So certainly in the creative tech and media sector here, and certainly in the Northwest and Manchester area, we're very aware, very, very aware of what's going on and the challenge that we face, especially for the younger generation. So the work that I'm doing with the MPA and a number of people that have been assembled, and we're all people from different sectors, just who have come together to work on this. And the work is around trying to raise that awareness to organizations around diversity, inclusion. And this is not just about race or gender or sexuality. It's, it's about disability, it's about neurodiversity. It's a whole host of things. There's a team of us that are working on it. And it's a long-term program rather than an initiative. And that's one of the hardest things. It has to be something that's long-term rather than just a project. And my area is around the younger generation, especially young Black kids or young girls of any racial backgrounds, because they're the ones that are kind of looking into the world and thinking, right, what do I want to be? And unless they can see themselves represented, they will become something. And this is not to say that they would not be happy as they grow up, but would they realize their true potential? I don't know. I think that's always the challenge. And I think if they can see themselves represented in the world, I think it gives them more options on what to aspire to. And guess what? That means that we're all benefiting from their potential.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the project that we're working on.
That's amazing. And I think one of the things which I've found really fascinating from doing these interviews is, very rarely have I met someone who's achieved success as you have, who doesn't have that kind of diverse range of interests in life, because that's actually where inspiration comes from. And so some of our viewers might not know, but you are an extremely talented astrophotographer. And just going on your Instagram, there's pictures on there which I'm like, I want basically most of them on my wall. And we've got some space here. But where did that interest come from? And do you actually find that having those kind of creative pursuits outside work for you, does that help you stay creative and stay inspired in your day job as well?
Where did it come from? Wow, that's a very interesting topic. Actually, it was years ago. I must have been I don't know, 13, 14. I remember seeing a Patrick Moore book in the library
Oh
at
yeah,
school.
yeah, he's amazing.
And I remember just looking at the pictures, and I was just in awe of the pictures of the galaxies and the different nebulas that you could actually visualize. And at the time, I didn't have an appreciation for the context, how far away they were, any of that. And so over the years, I've slowly creeped up my own interest in it, and it's something that fascinates me thoroughly because it's so vast, and there's so much about it that you can learn that there's never you never know everything.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the biggest interests that I have in it. And the process of actually doing astrophotography is actually extremely relaxing because it's dark at night when you tend to do it. It's usually cold if you're in the UK.
yeah,
And it's usually very, very quiet because everyone's asleep. It's like 1, 2, and 3 in the morning or something like that. And the process is actually quite calming, and you can kind of concentrate on it, and it settles the mind quite well. I thoroughly enjoy it because it's one of those times where I can kind of block everything else out and just focus on astrophotography. And it's when you do get some really good pictures, that's also very rewarding. And then the processing afterwards. And I think it does help because, my wife tells me I'm a workaholic. I don't think she's wrong. And you need something else to kind of balance your mental stability. You need to have other interests that keep you grounded in everything else that's going on in the world. And it's important to do that. Otherwise, you end up in this permanent cycle where you never get a break, a real mental break, not just, a holiday, but I mean, a mental break that interjects the work, routine that you have. So yeah, definitely that helps me.
yeah.
Stay calm.
Yeah, and I think it's really great that you recognize that, because I think it's one of those traits of leadership which I think is so important, is understanding the need for balance, because it's one of the key things that gives you resilience. But from your experience, you've worked with some really great business leaders as well, and do you see any kind of traits and common themes and how leadership and leaders operate, where you're like, well, actually, here are those qualities of a great leader, or here are those things that you need to develop to be a great leader?
Wow, I think we could probably do a whole masterclass on that one on its own.
No doubt, it's a huge topic.
huge topic.
Yeah.
So leadership or a leader, it's something that often people try and define in different ways. I see it as, it doesn't necessarily talk to seniority or anything. Leadership happens in subtle ways at times that you can see it happen with different people in different times. In terms of qualities, I think one of the biggest things is empathy. You have to be able to see different perspectives, and that's not always easy. I certainly don't always get it right myself. Be able to see different perspectives. So you enter a situation, there's a challenge that needs to be addressed. You have to see how everyone is possibly seeing it. Otherwise, you're actually not helping. You're making things harder because you're reinforcing only certain people's voices. So you have to kind of see the bigger picture. And you have to certainly be able to be visionary. Now, when I say that, I don't mean in the kind of Steve Jobs or people like that kind of sense.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, if you have a team around you, you have to be able to kind of describe a plan of action to them in a way that they get and they can relate to and action on collectively. So that's leading them, forward, as it were. The other thing is, you have to be very, very much a people person. People have to be able to come to you and talk to you about pretty much anything. And that's not always easy in the workplace, but I think it's absolutely crucial because, we're dealing with people. People will, they'll have things that are on their minds that might be distracting them, and if you can't help them get past that, then you're not getting the best out of them. You'll get in the percentage. So things like that are certainly very, very, very important to me. Inspirational, definitely, but I find that word very emotive, and it depends on people's context what inspiration means. But certainly, if you can find inspiration in someone, then they're a leader, and I think that's an important aspect as well.
And one sort of roundup question, if I may, Kai, and it sort of links to what you've just said around inspiration. I think we all do have those individuals that inspire us in different ways, and it's not often the obvious ones. For example, when I'm teaching on the MBA programs, at the start of the course, when you ask the students, who inspires you, and they reel off the usual Bezos, Musk, these kind of things, and that's fine. But then the more you get to know them, the more you realize that actually it was a teacher from early in their lives, or it may have been a random conversation they had. And I'd love to ask you that question, because you've built a phenomenally successful career. You're very grounded in your approach to leadership. But who inspires you? Who are those people that have really been inspirations to you in your journey?
Wow. The first person that really gave me a picture of what I wanted to aspire to was a guy called Shaquille Ahmed, who's unfortunately passed away now. And Shaquille was the chairman of a company where I used to work, and he hired me in as the operations director. And there was something about Shaquille. First of all, he was the first person of color in seniority that I aspired to. That for me was a big step, because I also all of a sudden realized, okay, yeah, I that's what I want. And I actually tried to model myself on Shaquille quite a lot, even now. And he had this air about him of he could make you feel like you could do anything.
Wow.
Yeah. And he could do that with anyone. I would see him do it in any setting. And he brought me into the company. The company just acquired another company, and we had to merge the operations together. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a small task by any stretch. And he knew that I would struggle, but he knew that I was capable. And he would do little things that kept making me feel like, yeah, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And it was either a text or a quick phone call or a quick email just to check in and just remind me, yeah, you're in charge. You can do it. Keep going. And those little nudges got me to successfully do what I needed to do over time. And as a person, he was extremely empathetic, extremely aware and emotionally intelligent of everything around him. And I'm sure that this is not something that he could do just like that. I'm sure he's acquired it over time, or he acquired it over time. And that emotional intelligence was so powerful in any setting that I thought, that's leadership. He always took everyone with him. He always got everyone to understand where he was trying to take the business, and he didn't do it in a way that made you feel as if you weren't heard. He made you feel as if you were heard. But this is what we need to do. And he would somehow make sure that what you said, even though it wasn't valid, was seen as being of value because you contributed. And I think that's so important when you've got a team around you, to make everyone feel like they're adding value, provided they are adding value, obviously. And he was very, very inspirational for me. He was a person of pure integrity, very aspirational. He wanted to make sure that everyone did well, and you could see it in him. And so that, made me sort of definitely look up to him. And he's been one of those people that has stayed with me mentally. So yeah, of course there are, I'm sure, as you said, famous people that would all like to say, oh yeah, they're inspirational. But I think it's important to have people that are, in the everyday life, which is why with the diversity stuff that we're doing, one of the things that I say is, let's get into schools. Let's get people that represent the children's diversity into school, so they can see themselves represented and aspire to that. We don't, no disrespect to famous people, but celebrities. I think sometimes it might be too far removed for the children to kind of visualize and work out, well, how do I get to that? So they need people that are a bit closer to, where they are, I think.
Yeah, great. No, Kai, that was really wonderful. And, I really appreciate you taking so much time out of your day to join the session. And, there's lots of things there, which I'm sure that our viewers are going to take away and apply. And I think particularly, around how you've spoken just there about the people that have really inspired you, and what you've taken from that into your own career. And I really hope everyone watching this has that reflection as well. But, on behalf of Lancaster and everyone watching, I just wanted to say thank you again. And we really look forward to seeing you again soon, Kai. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.